Do you know more about that comic after having watched that bit, or are
I
you
know
just,
more about that.
or are you just like I'm amused?
Greetings, everyone. Come on in and have a seat up front for the Funny Muscle Podcast. If you're here, then you're looking to learn how to create laughs like a pro. So please help me welcome to the stage your co-host to help you do that, economics professor and open micer Chris Stifler and comedian turned author Mike Lucas.
And so we were talking about an Anthony Jeselnik bit that he says, I just found out a good friend of mine is gay. He's like, I
Mhm.
don't know. I just found out my good friend of mine, Jeff, is gay. I don't know. I'm not even sure if that's his real
I'm
name.
terrible with names, or
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
terrible with names, whatever. So that I don't know. We did that last week or on the one we just released. And it what I liked about that joke, it's a simple bait and switch, which Anthony Jeselnik does all the time. He disguises it and does it differently each time, but it's basically a bait and switch. I thought you meant this, but you really meant that. I'm taking a twist on a certain word or a phrasing and making it more towards me. But what that joke does is it reinforces his comedy lens. His comedy lens is a guy who's like sort of miffed at the world, like the whole world bothers him. And because Anthony Jeselnik and his through his persona is better looking than the rest of the world. He's funnier than the rest of the world. He's more successful than the rest of the world. He's got it together more than the rest of the world. And so the rest of the world frustrates him and creates this constant need to comment on how they lack. And this was just another, I'm so busy and important. I don't even know my friend's name. So that it reinforces his comedy lens. So a good joke not only makes you laugh, but it also reinforces your comedy lens and reestablishes who you are as a comedian so that the audience gets to know you better like a third season sitcom star. Uh, how how do you do that? Well,
Yeah.
you have to figure out what is your emotional take on that topic, and you have to heighten that emotional take. So if the topic makes you angry, how angry does it make you? If it makes you sad or embarrassed, how sad or embarrassed does it make you?
It does sound like similar to like Matthew Dix's, like the person who does a lot of moth storytelling.
Yeah,
It's like he said he writes like no one wants to hear a story about you in Africa with a elephant sat on your Jeep because no one's been there.
right.
But if you tell a story about how you were embarrassed because you were poor or you were worried your kids were getting made fun of at school, then everyone in the room's like, I can identify with that. That's sort of what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
With the emotion.
although I would disagree and say that it's an interesting story to tell me about an elephant that sat on your Jeep. If you talk about fear, and we all have felt fear before, so if you can heighten how afraid was I in that moment, then we can all relate to it. And I think that's the key of storytelling and jokes and sketches is we're heightening these emotions that we're all feeling, and we're heightening them into a ridiculous level, but we can still relate to the emotion. And what the heighten does is the humor does is it gives us an alternative route to handling this emotion. So now when I'm angry, I don't just punch the wall. I can look at it in a funny angle because I've seen someone else do that.
Let's see if I can apply this to the bit I'm working on. Uh, it's when I was trying to together a bicycle, and I was worried I couldn't quite get the brakes right, and so I finally gave up and like admitted I need to go to take it to the bike shop. And as soon as I walked in the bike shop, I handed it to the tech, and he said, "Is this a ship to home bike that you put together yourself?" And I said, "Well, you can tell that right from the brakes." And the guy said, "Yeah, that and the handlebars are upside down."
That's funny.
So I think I have a great punchline. I just need to like massage the setup. And then I think that really opens up for a great act out. But like, do, would you say that I should ask myself how emasculated was I?
Yeah, that's the key emotion to this isn't because it could be frustration that I can't handle it myself, but the true emotion you're feeling is emasculated. What's it like to have another man handle your baby and tell you the right way to do it and tell you why you did it wrong? And
Mhm.
that's embarrassing. So emasculated is really embarrassing. So that's the basic emotion you're feeling. I'm embarrassed. How embarrassed was I? Well, what did it feel like? Give me a simile. If you're embarrassed about this, what else are you embarrassed about? Give me an extension. When I work on this, I'm not embarrassed. But when I work on this and I fail, I am embarrassed. Give me a contrast. Give me an anthropomorphization of the bike. Why are you
Yeah.
guys arguing over me? Why I'm just trying to get you from A to B. Don't get picky, whatever. Don't get all macho on me or whatever. You could do a exaggeration or a sarcasm, that will work in that case, it feels really good
So,
when another guy tells you how to do the thing that you thought you knew how to do. That's
so
sarcasm.
are we're in the heightening phase, right? So like in the gold standard that you're trying to teach me is you start with a joke and then you can kind of then once you have the one set up punchline, then you move into an act out or a sketch or more of a cut to.
Yeah, because you have the original joke. Like you would have
The
to work
joke's
on
there.
it.
Like I have joke structure with that already.
Yeah, I think the first joke you said about, plus the handlebars are upside down. That's what would you call that? That'd
Blueprint.
be a little bit
Can you
of a bait.
blueprint that?
Yeah, how does it start?
I just said I tried to assemble a bike myself. After 2 hours, I finally couldn't get the brakes and I broke down and had to take it to the bike shop. And I was worried the bike technician would know that I tried and failed to do it myself. And as soon as I walked in, the guy said, "Is this a bike you tried to put together yourself?" And I said, "Yes, how can you tell?" And he said, "The
Very free. So
handlebars are upside down."
that's the setup. The premise is I have a bike and I try to put it together myself. Now you're adding a lot of words in there. I don't think you're telling us a lot more than we need to know.
Let's
I'm
trim it down, okay?
I got a bike, that I'm putting
Tried to
together.
assemble my own bike. Couldn't get the
Yeah,
brakes.
but I couldn't get past the brakes, so I brought it into the shop, and the guy was like, "Is this one of those blah 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 bikes?" I was like, yeah. How can you tell? Well, da 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 and blah blah blah, and that's the whole joke.
And then that's a full joke. That's an actually punch. That's a good setup
Yeah, because the
punchline.
misdirection is,
It's
how can I
tiny
tell?
brakes.
Well, I could tell because the brand of the bike. I could tell because of the nature of the paint job. I could tell because of the way it's structured. I could tell because of the type of tires that you use. Like those are all like legitimate ways that this guy could, but he's like, no, I could tell because you put the handlebars on upside down. So that's the bait and switch and the funny specifics and the recognition. And so you've got all of that. Technically, you could say once you work that joke into a good joke, that's your first joke. That's your opening joke. That tells us now, what does that tell us? It tells us that the topic is bikes or building bikes. The emotion is embarrassment. I was embarrassed that I couldn't build my own bike and I had to bring it to somebody else. And then what's the setup? The setup is the guy could tell. The misdirection is he could tell because there's obvious differences between a regular bike and the bike I ordered. And then the misdirection that then the punchline is I literally put something on upside down. It was easy to tell, like somebody who doesn't know much about bikes could tell. I'm embarrassed, you know. And so that implies your emotion. So you need to heighten something that's been implied, or you need to state it again, like that because that could be where your sarcasm is. That makes a guy feel like real macho. That's sarcasm, you know. Oh, thanks for making me feel so macho. Even my bike thought I was a bit of a bitch. Oh, oh, Chris, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with your ass on my seat anymore now that it's been handed to you or whatever, And then you could do a different perspective. You could do a perspective of other bike riders. You could do the perspective of other repair guys that were at the shop. You could do a perspective of somebody watching you on your bike, riding it with the handlebars upside down.
It's like somehow like an act out. Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You could do a anthropomorphize of the handlebars that are upside down. How does a handlebar talk when it's upside down and it's not correct? Is it could be pissed. It'd be funny to have pissed off handlebars. Like, most handlebars don't have emotions, so that's funny. But the idea is all of these are heightening how embarrassed were you, right? By this event, by your inability to create to build this thing. And again, now we know, like, we care about this topic. I don't really care about bikes, but I care about you being embarrassed by your
mm,
bike. and by your inability to build that bike, and by the guy who could. Because I've been in that spot before. I've had to bring my car into the mechanic and have another guy fix my car for me. You know, I've had somebody mow my lawn for me. Embarrassing.
I think
Yeah.
it's a good,
Does that help?
super helpful. Okay, it's nice that I know I actually had joke structure though.
Yeah, you had it there. You have it there. And again, you're doing a written piece, but you're trying to transport it into a performance piece. So you
Yeah,
got to remember that you've got to set it up and do a premise and set up pretty quickly. You're trying to get
yes.
to it fast. So that first joke, or you got to get to another joke quicker before that first joke you have. If there's a joke about you deciding you could build your own bike, you know.
I think I can. I think I have a couple good joke structures because I've really been, since our last several sessions, been focusing on starting with what I know is a decent punchline, but massaging a lot, putting a lot more setup into the
Yeah.
setup, or putting a lot more effort into the setup.
Yeah, and the
Um,
setup, if you remember, the premise and setup is a real serious um it is the premise and setup are a real serious part of your speech. You know, it's you're not trying to get laughs out of it. You're saying, here's what I'm talking about, and here's how I feel about it, and here's how you should think about it. There's nothing funny about that yet.
so see if is this a full joke? There's a powerful surge of confidence that comes from watching a 3-minute YouTube tutorial, a confidence that makes men feel that they can do anything themselves, including light dentistry.
That's funny. That's a bit of a bait and switch. It's
You're expecting, including electrical
yeah,
work, or including plumbing, or
it's
including
funny
changing
specific.
your. Okay, here's a second joke in my piece. I know what you're thinking, Stifler. If you incorrectly assemble this conveyance that can go 40 miles an hour, you could get seriously injured. I knew I wouldn't get seriously injured for the following reasons. I had my own set of Allen wrenches, and most importantly, the bike would be ridden by my girlfriend.
Um, you need a third.
I had a third, and I just thought I would. So two regular ones. I had my own Allen wrenches. I had ridden, you know,
Wait, what was it? You said there should be two of yours, and then the third one should be, and it's for my girlfriend. You just
but
did
the norm
two. You
is
just said I have my own Allen wrenches, and it's for my girlfriend. There's
yes.
a natural rhythm, ba 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 ba. And if you
Same with
do,
written.
and if you do ba ba, yours is written ba 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 ba. So it comes too
That's just
soon.
not.
Yeah, it yeah it breaks the rule of the three, and I don't know why it's a rule, and I don't know why it works, but it's confusing if you don't do that.
But is that joke structure? Because I think the norm is you're expecting me to prove why I wouldn't get injured, and then the
Yeah,
reversal is that
it's a bait and switch.
I'm not the one riding it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a bait and switch.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
the misdirection is it's about for me, but really it's about for her. And the joke, if it wants to reflect your comedy lens, is your relationship is strained. You know, if you are with somebody who you're not so concerned about her safety, you know, if you're not, because it tells me that you know it's no big deal because it's about her. So that has to be true that you don't care so much about your girlfriend that if she gets hurt, you're like, better you than me, you know, or for that moment,
That's
it just is that. But if it doesn't reflect your truth, you could tell another joke later about your relationship and it might not ring true because you've already set it up with this. I thought you didn't like her. So that's why we don't lie as comics because then we have to lie later to cover up the lies. And then if you're trying to be honest later and it uh, goes against that first lie, then it ruins the joke for the audience. It doesn't make sense to them. I thought you liked that. I thought you were this. I thought you were that. I thought you flew
okay,
your own
sweet.
plane, you know, or whatever, you know.
All right, yeah. You ever see someone do open mic and have like 5 minutes of bits, and the first 2 minutes are bits they know they're working as a single dating person, and then they do 2 minutes of bits about being married.
Yeah.
They're like, what?
And that's somebody who's just trying to be funny still. They're not really worried about their act. They're not really worried about their comedy lens or their consistency or you know, heightening the emotions that they're feeling about life.
All
Yeah,
right, sweet. I think I could adapt several of those punchlines that I have for that written piece into stage.
yeah. And again, It's totally different to do a written piece and to doing a performance piece because we don't talk the same way we write and we don't listen the same way we read. So you got to take that into account.
Well, cool.
But I
Thanks for the
thought
help with that. So good mentoring.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, no
what's the
problem.
lesson today? What's the
Well,
lesson you're teaching me today?
I don't know that there's a specific lesson, but I have 5 bits I wanted to break down just the way we've been breaking these bits down. And they're just more different comics who are using the heightening devices, using misdirection, using the methodology and their comedy lens to create this material. And I want to just get used to watching a good comic get laughs and then breaking down why they're getting those laughs because that's what the key is if you don't have these heightening devices, you're not going to get a laugh. Your heightening device is the way you're getting the audience to go, oh, I see. I get why this qualifies for the setup that you just gave us. And I was misdirected into thinking you meant this, but you really mean this.
Now, do you
And I
think
think, go
will
ahead.
these pro bits with their punchlines tell us about their comedy lens, do you think?
I don't know. Let's find out. So now here's Ricky Gervais. Here's Ricky Gervais taking a negative and turning it into a positive. And he uses a problem solve to do that, extension and a different perspective. I'm trying to think of his comedy lens. He's an English guy in America. So he's sort of a transplant. So he's like an alien looking at American life from an outsider's perspective. He's a smartass. He's very intelligent. I don't know what his comedy lens is. I don't know what he considers
Hmm.
his comedy lens. But I think all those go into what his comedy lens is.
Did anyone have a pedo teacher when they were at school? Yes, yeah. Round of applause for pedo teachers, yeah.
So there it is. Like people were clapping the fact they had pedo teachers, and he's being sarcastic, saying, "Oh yeah, let's give them a round of applause since we all recognize that we had them." And so he's taking a negative and turning it into a positive very quickly.
Unbelievable. That's another thing. I think whereas people are now trying to be so politically correct, they're trying to out-woke each other. Soon someone's going to say, you can't say pedo anymore. It's a derogatory term. It offends people who are child addicted.
There you go. And so what is that? That's an extension. If we feel this way about pedos now, what will happen eventually? We'll eventually get so we'll defend them because they're a protected group, which is again negative to positive in a weird twisted way. He's being sarcastic. We're so woke, we're going to do this. So what's his emotion? His emotion is I don't like it. I call bullshit. How much do I call bullshit? I'm going to show you what it looks like to keep going that route.
Right? So you're going to have people going to the doctor going, Doctor, I think I'm child addicted. Right? And doctor go, oh, you poor thing. How do you feel? I feel like I want to fiddle with kids. That is one of the symptoms. Don't worry, sit down. We'll get you into a facility at taxpayers' expense, right? And we'll wean you off children. How does that work, doctor? Well, you know, like when they give heroin addicts methadone, yeah? Well, we're going to start you on dwarves, right?
So there's a problem solved.
Yeah.
And he's using funny specifics. He's using dwarves, and he's even saying it. He doesn't say midgets. He says dwarves correctly, when really
He
he's
is that
busting
shtick.
their balls.
He is that shtick where he laughs at his own jokes. It's
Yeah,
almost infectious because he can't even say the word dwarves without himself getting like he's laughing as he struggles through that word.
right. And that's part of his delivery system. Like that's how
Yeah.
he rolls. He allows himself to laugh at his own, and he's not necessarily laughing at his bit. He's laughing at the ridiculousness of the thought that went into that bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Right.
a so subtle difference, but he knows it's slightly offensive, and so
Yeah.
it's like touching the.
And sometimes
But
when you
does
laugh at that, it makes it less offensive because it's like, I get it. I get this is ridiculous to say.
does he have set up punchline in this
We'll see.
bit, or is it more of a sketch act out extension?
Did anyone have a pedo teacher when they were at school? Yes.
Okay, so that's how he gets into the topic. Did anyone have a pedo teacher? Because now who knows what he was talking about before this? So remember, when we're looking at these clips, a lot of times what we're seeing is we're seeing a tag onto a previous bit. So the premise has already been issued, and we're talking about pedos. So he might have already been talking about pedophilia, and then he comes up with this question: did anyone have a pedo teacher before? So this is about, do you have one of these things, one of the situations in your life? So what's the misdirection? The misdirection is, yeah, oh, boo, boo, we don't like it. And then the surprise is they clapped. Yeah, we did, as if it's a good thing. And he's mocking the fact that because they're clapping because they recognize it. And they go, yeah, yeah, we did. Everyone has.
Yeah. Round of applause for pedo teachers, yeah.
Like, that's probably not the first time he's done this bit every night that he does a show. And I bet you every crowd claps, and I bet every time he reacts that way. And I bet he's got I bet he's got a reaction if they boo. I bet there's some nights that they boo. So he's got a reaction for that. And he laughs about that, and about the appropriateness of the booing of that. Because if, I'm glad we're still booing, because eventually it's going to be like this. So you can still get into the bit.
Yeah, or yeah. Last night I did that and they actually applauded, and then you're right
Yeah,
back to where you.
exactly.
That's another thing. I think whereas people are now trying to be so politically correct, they're trying to out-woke each other. Soon someone's going to say, you can't say pedo anymore. It's a derogatory term.
So that's in the extension. He says, it's like this now. Soon it's going to be like that. So he's tagging his original bit about clapping about having a pedo teacher. Now, you can tell there's an edit in there. So there's something else in between. So again, it's hard to tell. It's hard to break down the joke as if it's a solo joke that's by itself, because it's obviously got other pieces that have been pulled out. And so if there's anything missing or anything that doesn't feel like he's done it correctly, it's probably because it's been edited out, not because Ricky Gervais doesn't know how to do comedy. Ricky Gervais is an expert. He's probably got all that stuff in there, and we just don't see it. So this one jumps straight to the extension.
It offends people who are child addicted.
And that's a funny wordplay, or a funny, he's invented institution.
Made up institution.
Yeah. I'm not a pedo, I'm child addicted. And that's a common game we play in the comedy world, which is we replace something that's awful with something that's less, that's more woke and more a funny way to put it. I'm not a garbage collector. I'm a refuge engineer, kind of a thing.
That's
Right. So it's that game he's playing, but he's doing his version of it in this case. So that gets his first laugh. So you could argue that that's another joke that he's done.
Right. So you're going to have people going to the doctor going, doctor, I think I'm child addicted.
So you're going to have people going to the doctor going, so what's he doing there? He's doing a cut forward to.
Cut forward, yeah.
Cut forward to people going to the doctor and having a conversation with their doctor. Now he's doing a different perspective, which is the person who's a pedo who's going to the doctor wanting sympathy.
And doctor go, oh, you poor thing.
And now he's doing the doctor going back at him. So he's doing a conversation, the act out back now. Oh, you poor thing.
How do you feel? I feel like I want to fiddle with kids.
Right? He's overstating the obvious. What does a pedo want? I want to fiddle with kids. Oh, well, that's one of the symptoms, right? That's sarcasm.
Don't worry, sit down. We'll get you into a facility at taxpayers' expense, right? And we'll wean you off children. How does that work, doctor? Well, like when they give heroin addicts methadone, yeah?
That's the setup. That's the misdirection. We're going to give you a methadone version for pedos. So there's going to be a pill or a shot we're going to give you that will satisfy your needs, and you won't have to hurt anybody. That's the misdirection. What's the surprising truth?
Well, we're going to start you on dwarves, right?
Right. So now he's using a funny problem solve that takes the piss out of dwarves, and in his world, like, to me, that's punching down. He's punching down at dwarves in order to get a laugh about pedos. So it's pretty complex, because he's really punching down at or he's really punching up at pedophilia, right? It's awful. We shouldn't do it. It's so awful. How awful is it? It's some, because he's also, if we're honest, he's poking fun of woke society,
Mhm.
and he's doing both. He's saying, how woke are we? How woke are these people? They're so woke they're going to give pedos a pass because they're a protected group. So he's frustrated about pedophilia, but he's also frustrated about woke society, and that's a common theme. Again, does this joke reflect Ricky Gervais's comedy lens? Yes, because he doesn't like the way the woke society is causing us to behave, and so he's making a bigger comment about that by making a more specific comment about pedo. So and then who knows where that joke goes? Who knows what where he's taking that? But again, another joke that is not only funny, but it reflects his comedy lens, and it tells us more about who Ricky Gervais is. He doesn't like pedos, and but he feels like we're too woke to really appreciate that. I got one. This is a guy named Rory Scovel. This guy, I really like him. He's a guy. Do you know Rory? Have you you might
Yeah,
recognize him once you
see what
see.
he looks like.
Yeah, but he's real funny. He's a bit of a Southern guy, and he is a real he's real sarcastic, and he's got almost like a preacher's cadence to him, but he's not what you would expect from that type of person. He is more advanced, more I guess you would say more woke about the world than an old preacher who doesn't know much about how real people are acting now. So let's see. He says, I'm one of those people.
I'm one of those people that doesn't believe in global warming, but I'm pretty sure Noah's Ark was a true story.
So that's a funny joke. I'm one of those people that doesn't believe in global warming. So he's setting us up for a misdirection, which is I'm on the right. I don't like science. And then how does he prove that? He proves that by saying, but I believe Noah's Ark was real. Now he's being sarcastic. He doesn't believe any of this stuff. He's pretending to be the thing he hates, I think.
You know, where the guy was warning everybody about the insane change in the weather, and everyone's like, shut the fuck up, Noah. Quit hogging all the wood so you can go off and f those animals. Well, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like to us, dude.
So what's great about this is he's doing a two-way argument and only doing one of the sides. And he's telling us what the other person is saying by what he's saying in response. And that's real tricky. That's a real fun way to do it, because he could do both sides, but it takes longer. And what this does is what we always talk about, which is a good thing to
It's
do.
pieces.
It allow the audience to put together the pieces. And the audience goes, oh, I get it. He's saying this. Oh, I get it. He's saying that.
Looks like you're building some kind of sex ship out there.
Again, that's a made-up institution, a sex ship. He's overstating the obvious of what Noah's doing. He's doing a different perspective, a city person he's doing a cut forward to that meeting between the people who are nervous about what Noah's doing, or it would be a cut back to because it's in the past. And he's heightening what is he really heightening? He's heightening that first experience we had with global warming, or like a global weather situation, which was the rain in Noah's Ark. Even back then, it was up. It was people were responding like "fuck you," and people were responding like that to the people who were responding to the weather. So Noah was responding to global warming like it was like a real thing, and other people were like, "It looks like you're fucking the animals."
That's not the case. You need to come down to the pub and you need to give a speech because people are talking, dude. People are fucking talking. We don't know you. We don't know you. You're like 1,000. No one else is 1,000.
Again, funny specific, a Bible, people live to be a real old. Noah was notoriously old. And so he's letting the audience feel, oh, that's right, Noah was old. And this guy knows it and he's pissed. If you don't know him or haven't seen his whole act, it's hard to assume his emotion here. But his emotion is, I'm fed up with people who are giving shit to global warming. and people's reaction to global warming. That's what it feels like. That's what his emotion is. And he's saying, how fed up I bet I'm going to show you how fed up I am. I'm going to show you what it was like back in the day when people gave him shit for reacting to global warming or a global weather situation. So, and it does it do what we said it does? Does it make us laugh? Yes, it's very funny. We can see how this would be a funny occurrence, and the idea that the city, elders call out Noah for being an animal figure and say, "Well, you better give a speech because that's what they're saying." It's almost like a frog bank, which is a serious warning to somebody who's scaring everybody, about racism or politics, but it's about animal fucking. That's the bank. And so it's a complex thing. So, but it also, I think, it reflects his comedy lens, right? Which is to call out that kind of bullshit, and to mock it by almost embracing it. Funny guy though, right? I've seen a
Yeah.
bunch of his stuff, and he's a real funny guy, and I'm happy that he's doing comedy. I like his take on it, and I haven't seen his full special, but I've seen clips from it. It's just wonderful.
Those are all seemed like most of the laughs though were in the act out. Like they were all three of them had quick set up punchline jokes, but then the majority of the bit was the act out.
Well, that's the modern way to do it. Like the modern way to do it is because the initial joke gets a laugh. So if they were to move on in a traditional sense, it'd be fine. And then they would build up on those laughs. But they're modern comics, so that it's not fine to move on after you get your, premise set up punchline joke. Your job is to explore that emotion. Your job is to heighten that emotion. Your job is to heighten that idea that you had in the original laugh so that it's bigger and transforms into something that we might not even recognize. Where it goes from the idea of a man reacting to the weather by building a boat into a city elder yelling at him for fucking animals and telling him he better give a speech. Like that's a big transformation. It goes from something very simple and recognizable to something we've never seen before. And it's funny, you know. Here's one, Aziz Ansari, funny comic. He's doing an overstating the obvious, recognition, and funny specifics. He's an American who uses his culture to affect how he looks at our country. And I like that. He's sarcastic. He's a real sarcastic guy. So let's see what he
But
says.
imagine if marriage didn't exist, and you're a guy and you asked a woman to get married. Imagine what that conversation would be like.
We don't know what he talked about beforehand, if he's got a joke to set this up, but he's obviously setting up a situation to cut forward to, which is someone describing marriage for the first time, or cut back to. So what's marriage like for the first time? So he's going to overstate the obvious of what marriage is to somebody to make his case to make marriage happen. But he's using sarcasm and funny specifics to battle that.
You'd be like, hey, so, we've been hanging out together all the time, spending a lot of time together and everything. Yeah, I know. I want to keep doing that till you're dead.
So, and he's got a look in his eyes, and he's to reemphasize that until you're dead. So it's overstating the obvious, right? And he's talking about something we all recognize, till death do us part, but he says it differently to make it sound sick and weird, and because it's the first time. That's how it sounds to somebody who's never heard this before.
What? I want to keep hanging out with you till one of us dies. Put this ring on your finger so people know we have an arrangement.
Again, there's a bit of a frog bank going on here. There's the frog, or the one scenario is a guy who's looking to kidnap somebody, or looking to hold someone hostage, or hang on to them permanently against their will. And then the other side of this is marriage, the specifics of marriage. So that it tells us a little bit about his emotion, which is marriage scares me. It's a lot to ask of somebody.
What? Who's that guy? It's a priest. I want you to swear to God you won't back out of this deal. What's he wheeling in? It's a cake with 2 tiny dolls that look like us. Eat a slice. Now feed a little bit to me. This is really strange. Why are we doing this? Tax purposes.
And there's a bit of a bait and switch there, right?
Yeah,
why are we doing this? Because we love each other, eternal love, to prove our love to each other. But the bait and switch is tax purposes.
To be a joint tax filer. Yeah.
And that's what kind of what one of the only advantage of being married is, in his world, in his worldview. So it makes us laugh. He skips the initial joke. He goes straight into the cut back to. He goes straight back to, cut back to if the guy was proposing this for the first time, marriage, to someone who doesn't know what it is. And then overstates the obvious, uses recognition and funny specifics to make that point.
Is there a term for that? Like a writing? It seems like that's used a lot in comedy. It's the hot pocket bit that Gaffigan does. It's Seinfeld, who invented almond milk? He's just standing there looking at a cow going, how do I fucking milk this? Or like,
that's
what's that? What's
joke, which is a cut back to the first time something was invented.
Okay.
There's many versions of that. I remember, what's his name? The funniest comic in America, James Gregory. That's his name. I couldn't think of his last name. He did a bit. I think it was him, or no, maybe it might have been someone else. Now that I think of it, but the idea that no, it was James Gregory. He said it's a law. The reason why it's a law is because at some point someone broke that thing, and that means at some point some man
Someone did.
and he keeps going back to that, and so it cut back to the first time someone did that, and someone said enough. It's a law. First time someone swallowed glue and ate it is like it was food, and and so. He does a series of those things. So, and he's been doing comedy since the 70s. So it's been around for a while. That's like you said, you just said a Seinfeld bit that did that, or a Jim Gaffigan bit that does that with Hot Pockets or McDonald's. It's funny to look back. Again, that's a cut back to the first time this was ever a thing. And that's a common way to go. You can do that and still get a laugh and be original because you're cutting back to a moment that no one else has thought of. And I got one last one here, which is Bill Burr. And this is a contrast, recognition, funny specifics, and metaphor. Again, Bill Burr, we've looked at him before. The humor of him, the emotion that he emits typically is frustration. Things frustrate him, and he talks about it on stage. So he doesn't have to say, boy, does this piss me off. We just know because it's Bill Burr.
Yeah, I love my wife to death. I love everything about being fucking married.
I love that. I love my wife to death. I love everything about being married. But there's always a but, and that's where the fun comes in. So, but I'll tell you this right now.
But I'll tell you this right now. We do fight a lot. We do argue all the time.
So that's the premise. The premise is arguments, marriage arguments. We fight all the time. His emotion is going to be, it frustrates me that we fight all the time.
If I've learned anything in 5 years of being married is we're always working on me.
So if I've learned anything in 5 years of marriage, we're always working on, and then that's the misdirection, which is communication. We're always working on
forgiveness.
We're working on kindness, empathy. No, the bait and switch is me. I'm broken. And that frustrates me. And how much does it frustrate me? We'll see what he says about her.
Evidently, my wife is this completed work under museum glass that is to be admired and studied. Like, how did she do that?
This is going to be a contrast. My wife is like this. She's under a museum glass.
And I'm like one of these guys, you know those buildings that just has scaffolding around it for like 6 straight years? So you're like, are they ever going to finish that thing? Is that some sort of insurance job? Jesus Christ, what a piece of shit. You should just tear it down and start over again.
So that's a funny contrast because in each of the contrasts, he does a act out. The first one is it's under museum glass. It's perfect. It's just, oh my goodness.
Lighting.
Yeah. How do we even do that? And then compared to me, that's my wife compared to me. And then he does a simile, which is both of those are similes. Museum glass, is a simile, and construction work, something under construction. Are they ever going to fix that? That's a frog bank. Right? It's like, driving past a broken part of the highway there's 2 roads on my way to get to the Dallas Comedy Club that have been broken since I've been going there for the last 2 years. And I'm just like, are they ever going to fix this? And that's like, I laugh at this bit because I think about that in my life. And I'm like, he's like that road. He's like that road that's never going to get fixed. That's a funny bit, and it reflects his comedy lens. So all 5 of these bits are not just funny, but they also reflect the person's overall point of view at comedy. I think that's the goal of the real professional comic, is to not just make people laugh, but to reflect your comedy lens so that people understand who you are more clearly by doing that bit and by expressing that heightened emotion. And that should tell you, like, look at your bits as you get to be a better comic, and you're like getting rid of the things, like old things, and putting in new things. Like, that's one of the things you use to throw things out. Does this no longer serve my comedy lens? When I do this bit, do I lose people's interest in who I am as a comic because it doesn't reflect what I'm talking about? Because if you're like Bill Burr, and he does all these bits that frustrate him, and all these bits and then he does one bit where plays like the angel. No one's going to buy it. No one's going to buy that that's him, or no one's going to care about that because it's not a Bill Burr bit. And I don't think it would interest him even. I don't think he's not interested in playing that role. That's the whole point. That's what we like about Bill Burr, is he's willing to be the douchebag and say the things we don't want to say about life.
So translate our lesson from this hour into like the hour for a comic to work on stuff. So if say they're not working on new jokes, they're just looking at old material. What kind of lens or what drill or what template or step by step could you give us?
Well, I'd say the thing that we're looking at today, I guess, now that I look back on it, is it's not just enough to be funny. As if you're a real pro comic, being funny is, of course, a very important part of it. But being funny in a way that reinforces your comedy lens and your angle and your emotions that you have towards life is also important. You got to do both. So that's what I would recommend, is to figure out what of your bits does that, gets a laugh and also reinforces your comedy lens. What bits don't do that? And if they don't do that, that doesn't mean throw the bit out. That means adjust it, work on that bit, figure out how it fits your comedy lens better. Maybe there's an emotion you can throw in there that you haven't thrown in yet, and that emotion reflects your comedy lens. Maybe there's an angle that you haven't taken yet that lends itself to your lens. Add that and see if that works. See if that improves the bit. And then when you're watching bits and observing and breaking down other people's bits, see if they pass that test. Is it funny, and does it reflect your lens? Do you know more about that comic after having watched that bit, or are you just like, I'm amused? It's not enough just to be amused anymore. Again, we're a 5-tool occupation. You got to be a comedy writer, a comedy performer, a director, a traveler, and a business person. And your job as a comedy writer and a comedy performer and as comedy director, is to create bits that reflect your comedy lens and heighten that personality that you already have developed as a comic, heightens that emotion that you've already established as a comic. Because that's kind of what happens as you get to be a better comic. your emotional reaction to life becomes more consistent. I'm always frustrated. I'm always embarrassed. I'm always uh, pissed off, or whatever. You can begin to get more clear on what that is that you do, and make sure that you do that, and then watch how other comics do it, and decide whether or not they've done it or not, and if they're missing that. You're not going to tell them. You're not going to, but it's a way to begin to observe comedy.
Pause the show. Pause the show. He missed his setup.
Dear Louis C.K., I don't feel that last bit you did. Who are we to tell anyone like that what they're doing? Because at that level, I bet you they've considered all of that. That's part of what goes into their creative process. As a newer comics who are trying to do this, we're just trying to learn how to get that done. How to add that to our own repertoire, our own tool belt.
I wrote that. I like that. Do you ask yourself, do you know more about the comic from this bit?
Yeah.
It's a good thing, a good smell test or a good. It's sort of like the same advice for the memoir writer, editor I worked with. She said every interaction in your memoir book has to be a stroke of yellow paint.
Yeah.
When you start blue at the beginning of the set and you end green at the end of the set, and every bit of yours gives a little bit more yellow paint on your transformation as a person.
Yeah, and that, again, that's above the net consideration. If you're just learning how to be funny, it's hard to think about those things. But that's where we're going. That's where we're heading. And as a comic, as an art form, we owe it to the art form to be more that way and to develop into that. Because otherwise we're not impressing anybody. We're not pushing the boundary. We're not getting better at this as a group.
Okay, cool.
Beautiful, buddy. Good to see you.
Thanks for your help. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
nice
good
work.
session.
Yeah, take care.